My stomach's groaning really loudly, and I'm wondering if the mic can pick it up because it's right next to it.
Oh, fair enough.
It stopped now.
I was saying, is that the intro?
No, I've
All right. You know what? Yeah, it is. Done. Let's go. In the dual and occasionally intersecting spheres of music and shredding the fuck out of a guitar, there is one name that is treated with more reverence than all others, that of Robert Johnson. Widely considered one of the finest guitarists to have ever lived, Johnson's prodigious skill with the instrument was such that even seasoned guitarists can't figure out how the fuck he made it make the sounds that he did.
So Robert Johnson is widely described as one of, if not the greatest guitarist ever.
Yes, to have ever lived, the best of all time.
So I'm assuming that his entire life must be like incredibly well documented.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But no. We know almost nothing about Robert Johnson's life, save for the fact he could make a guitar wail like a bald eagle with its balls caught in a mousetrap.
So what era did he actually live in?
No, the 20th century, so you can forgive not everything about his life being known, but it's just quite interesting that the greatest guitarist to have ever lived, we know almost nothing about him, and there exist about 30 recordings of him playing the guitar, and there are 4 known photographs. But that's weird to think, isn't it? Like, one of the greatest guitarists of all time, and arguably one of the most influential, and the only real, stuff that he left behind was a handful of recordings that never went anywhere in his own lifetime and languished in obscurity for decades until people heard them and went, holy shit, this guy was ahead of the curve. Like, this guy was, if he was alive today, would be fucking on it.
I guess it's understandable, because if you're not appreciated in your lifetime,
yeah,
then all that remains of you when people finally realise how skilled you are
is what you left behind at the time. And obviously he was a poor black man in the South, so he was put it bluntly, the bottom of the rung, and people didn't pay much mind to him until years later they realised, holy fuck, this is the best guitarist I've ever fucking heard. And and it's a shame, isn't it? Just to think if people in his town would appreciate it, all the music would have gone. But I guess that's the beauty of art, in that you do have those rare individuals who just shine so bright. So I think he died roughly around age 27. So he's a member of the 27 Club, probably the inaugural member, because that's roughly when we think he passed away. And he shone so brightly for such a short period of time that basically his legacy is now the greatest guitarist who ever lived. So maybe in a way, as harsh it sounds like, it's a good thing. We don't know anything about him, because the only thing we do know is that he's a baller-ass pimp who shredded the fuck out of a guitar. Yeah. So his lasting legacy is just going to be best guitarist ever. And you know what? That's a pretty good fucking thing to have on your Wikipedia page.
Do you think in the modern era that kind of person, like a legend in that right, can ever exist?
Or an undiscovered genius?
Yeah.
Probably, but once the genius of that person is discovered, we'll know pretty much everything about them. The only way you can avoid that happening is if you're someone like Banksy, who makes a concerted effort to hide their identity so that only their art is really known. And even then, you could probably find out who he was, as long as you're not the police. Because Banksy will talk to journalists and stuff, just under the proviso they don't tell anyone who the fuck he is. Which is fair enough, that's his prerogative. But even then, the fact that we know about him and you can just go have an interview with him, but I don't think we're ever going to have 100 years down the line. Here's an amazing undiscovered genius from the 2010s. There will be, amazing piece of music, art, literature out there that will not be appreciated in their time. But the difference is, unlike Robert Johnson, when we go back, we'll probably have to find out about that person, because they will have had an online presence, and we'll be able to track them through that and at least find out some information about them. Unfortunately, Robert Johnson didn't have a Facebook page, so we don't know fucking nothing about him. One of the few things we do know about him is that he just fucked and drank all the time. So he was a rock star before rock stars were a thing. Because one of the rumours is that he died of just sexually transmitted diseases from fucking too much. It's you know what? You do you, Robert Johnson.
So we don't know where he was born, or where he was died or buried.
Yeah, where he was died.
Where he was died.
I am master of magnets. Calm down.
Welcome to Die. So we don't know that. We don't know where he came from anyway, what he played.
No, not really.
How did he learn?
We don't know that.
Good?
What we do know is that he evidently had an unnatural affinity for the guitar and reportedly learned to master the instrument in just 2 years. And obviously, learning to master an instrument in 2 years is fucking impressive. which means he was basically a virtuosic genius of the instrument. And it's a shame, obviously, we don't know more about his life, because it would have been interesting to know, like, how his mind worked, or even just having more of his recordings. But what I love about the story of Robert Johnson is that even now, decades after he's dead, seasoned veteran guitarists who have played the instrument for years and have, like, basically they're masters of it themselves, will hear his recordings and go, how is he doing this? Like, there's a great story. It was that Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones was listening. Like, he was told by a friend, like, "Oh, listen to this. This is Robert Johnson." And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool." And he's like, "This guy basically invented rock and roll." I was like, "Oh, cool. Let's have a listen." And he's like, "Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. Who's the other guy playing with him?" And so, "What do you mean? Because who's the other guy playing on the track?" "There's no one else playing on the track, Keith. It's just him." And Keith Richards was like, "It took me a while to realise it was one man playing the instrument, because I couldn't figure out how he was playing chords and riffs at the same time, because that's something he could do." And that's fucking amazing, isn't it? Like, Keith Richards, like, he's been a rock star forever and will be a rock star until the heat death of the universe. And he, in all his years on stage and touring with other musicians and seeing people play the guitar, couldn't figure out what this man from like 100 years ago was doing.
You think you were getting a handle on playing the blues, and then to hear Johnson, you say, whoa, there's a long way to go yet. The songs and the subject matter and the way they were treated, let alone the guitar playing, which is almost like Bach.
It reminds me a lot of the story. Have you ever heard of the violinist Niccolo Paganini? I think I mentioned him once or twice before, but the basic story here is very similar to Johnson, where he's just a violin virtuoso of just such prodigious skill, people couldn't figure out how the fuck he played what he did. Because he apparently had something like Marfan syndrome, which gave him giant, unnaturally long fingers, so he could span his fingers across like 5 octaves or something stupid like that. A feat no violinist alive today can match. And like Niccolo Paganini, he was so good that people said, "Oh, he got his power from the devil," because no one that good can be human. And he had to produce a letter from his mother to prove that he had one, because people genuinely thought he'd been birthed from like some black mass of just like evil in a graveyard somewhere. And they even said that years after he died, you could hear him playing in his grave, because obviously even death couldn't stop him making music.
That's a common trope with musicians.
Well, yeah, because the same thing happened with Robert Johnson, where he was so skilled at the guitar and learned and mastered the instrument in such a short period of time. The prevailing theory at the time was that the devil gave him his powers. But Robert Johnson's story is just a little bit more interesting than what you're probably imagining. Because what you picture when I say the devil gave him his powers?
Tenacious D devil.
Yeah, but you're just thinking like the story from The Devil Went Down to Georgia, right? It's a generic cloven hoof devil giving a young man like a demonic instrument and bestowing him with his powers. No. The story of Robert Johnson is a little different, because the devil in Robert Johnson's story, at least according to some versions of it, isn't your cloven-hoofed, horned, red-skinned devil. It is a giant black man with a booming voice who gave Johnson a devil guitar and bestowed him with his demonic powers to play the instrument. And do you know why I love this story? Because it's basically Bayonetta. Because that's Rodin giving Bayonetta new weapons. Rodin is a huge black dude who is a fallen angel, or a demon, as some would put it, who gives you weapons if you give him like angelic LPs which play music. Like in return for those, it's video games, it makes sense. And he gets the weapon by going to hell and personally beating the shit out of a demon and then bringing it back and giving it to you. And what I need you to do, Brad, or Nisha, if you end up editing this video, and I know it's going to be difficult given that there's only one photo of Robert Johnson to exist, or one that we can use at least, please now Photoshop Rodin from Bayonetta giving Robert Johnson like the demonic devil guitar from Devil May Cry 3 that Dante gets from Nevern. There's just something really awesome about the idea established in Bayonetta and Devil May Cry that demons, when you kill them, become weapons. I love that. So have you played Devil May Cry? Oh, you've seen me play it a bit, haven't you?
Yeah, I played through Devil May Cry 4 once.
And all the weapons in that are just demons who you slayed, who agree to give you their power willingly, and then you use it in combat, including like a demonic devil guitar that fires lightning and bats out of it. And it's fucking awesome. And the best bit is, though, in Devil May Cry 5, they like released like a little short story before it that explained So this is Devil May Cry 5. Where's all the other cool shit he's got in his adventures? Why is Dante still using his regular sword? Oh, and it turns out that he sold all his demon weapons to people to pay his light bill. Because he couldn't pay his fucking bills.
Why is Dante simultaneously the coolest and yet lamest person
Oh, he's
ever?
so lame. Because what I like to imagine is in all the scenes of him doing like the cool shit when he gets a weapon, just imagine he's in the room completely on his own. Like when he gets Nevin, he plays the guitar to an audience of nobody. Like he's that kid in a Metallica t-shirt shredding in his bedroom. And like there's all that scene needs is at the end, like Dante's mum knocking on his door. I'm like, Dante, keep that shit down, I'm trying to sleep. Your dad's on nights. To bring it back to Robert Johnson and away from Devil May Cry, which I hate doing. So you know how cool Robert Johnson is. The truth of the matter is, he was just that fucking good. Although I am quite partial and would like to officially endorse, in my position as, like, you know, the head of this channel and the owner of Big Wangs Incorporated, the idea that the devil is a large black man who hands people magic instruments, because that's awesome. So we kind of got a little bit sidetracked during that video, and I talked a lot about Devil May Cry and the dumb weapons it contains. So, Brad, do you have any favourite like dumb fictional weapons from like video games, movies, TV shows, and the like that you want to talk about?
The first one that comes to mind, there's an Easter egg. I think it's Red Faction. Is it Armageddon? It's called. There's this Easter egg where you can get a unicorn that fires rainbows out of its arse.
Oh, okay.
So you basically wield it like a weapon and pull on its tail, and it fires rainbows.
Well, that reminds me of this. I don't know why this game is in my head. Did you ever play the first-person South Park shooting game?
Yes.
For the PS1.
Are you gonna mention the cow launcher?
The cow launcher and the chicken gun. Because the sniper rifle in that game is a chicken, which you fire eggs out of its arse. But I always like the detail of you aim it by the two tail feathers and you use it as like a makeshift sight. And I was wondering why that's in my head, and I'm glad that someone else remembers it. 'Cause I was thinking, I'm going to sound like such a nerd if I mention this fucking obscure piece of shit game. But the thing is, if we're talking about dumb gun weapons, we can't not mention the king of this trope, and it's TimeSplitters. And the TimeSplitters series is fucking amazing for this stuff, and it had my... It's not dumb, but it's just the mag launcher from TimeSplitters 3, where it's a gun that fires through walls. And they had no idea how broken that shit would be in a game where you can also pick up an upgrade that gives you like 100% damage boost. So what you do is go sit in a corner and just fire through the walls, and you can headshot people across the map through walls. It's like, yeah, 'cause this is fair. This is the most fair balanced weapon I've ever seen. I am literally headshotting people from behind 4 foot of concrete. So dumb. And sometimes I remember my brother getting so pissed off, and I just remember seeing his like red blob of a character run towards me. I thought, oh no, scope out. Oh, there's a brick wall between me and him. Bam, 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 bam.
I mean, if we're going to talk about awesome weapons video games, what about Ignatius' staff?
Oh god, Ignatius'
That can cut things in half.
Ignatius' big, mighty staff. You know what? Fact Fiend is an Ignatius fan club now, because we play some Nightmare Creatures, because you've got to admit, they're rare.
Yeah.
How can you go for the rare?
Yeah.
In that game, Nightmare Creatures, you can just stun lock enemies by just spamming the fastest move in the game, which happens to be a kick. So Ignatius just defeats the hordes of the undead, like the titular Nightmare Creatures, by just continually roundhouse kicking them in the head and then cutting them in half with a blunt stick. God, that game needs a reboot, man.
Oh,
Fuck
yeah.
it.
Hashtag remaster
Nightmare Creatures. No, hashtag rare.